Kravitz. If you have not followed his Triple H horse racing podcast, you're missing out. It's one of the best podcasts in the country.
Good evening and welcome to episode 368 of Picks and Ponies right here on the HHH Racing Podcast. It is one of our biggest shows of the year. Can you feel the energy? Can you feel the excitement? This weekend, Saturday at Saratoga, it is the 2024 Travers, and we are here right to help you cover the all grade 1 pick 5. It's an unbelievable card, 14 races. They start very early. We're going to be talking about races 9 through 13 right here on the HHH Racing Podcast. I'm your proud host, Howard Kravitz. Thanks for joining us. Please make sure you hit that subscribe button on the bottom right-hand side of the screen to YouTube. Smash the like button below the video player, and on the top right-hand corner on YouTube, hit that notification bell so that you know when new content will arise. If you're not watching live, you can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor. We have great tip sheets. Look below the video player for all of our information. Del Mar only, Saratoga only Power Pick tip sheet is available now until Thursday, midnight Eastern. I am writing the picks this week for Saratoga only. It's going to be a big blowout edition with a lot of information. Please look into subscribing to our Saratoga only Power Picks tip sheet. You can find out more information about all of our tip sheets on our fantastic website, hhhracingpodcast.com. I don't want to waste any more time. We've got a lot to talk about tonight with one of the most exciting races and cards on the year. And I have 3 people to help me do that, but we're going to bring on 2 people first for about 30 seconds, and I'll bring on our special guest. First of all, my outstanding co-host. First, from the East Coast of Maryland, Mr. Pete Visco, and from the Saratoga Special and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Mr. Paul Halloran. Guys, I don't have to ask you how we're doing tonight. What an incredible card we're going to be covering tonight for Saturday at Saratoga.
You know, you sound pretty spry tonight for an old man. What's going on?
That's right.
I gotta tell you guys, vibrant. I mean, I don't know. I was expecting a more, more subdued, little more. Oh man, I don't know what's happening kind of vibe. But what are we hitting today? 62, 63, 64? I can't remember.
Well, it's funny you say that, Pete, because I didn't really say much at school. I sort of just keep a low profile. But my last class of the day, right at the end of class, I said, "You guys have a great day. I'm going to go home and celebrate my birthday." And they're like, "What? It's your birthday?" And I said, "If you guess my birthday correct, I'll give you a prize tomorrow." And the first kid yells out 63.
Ooh.
I'm like, 63? I'm not as old as that fossil Paul Halloran. Oh no, wait, sorry, Paul. My bad. Anyway, I want to give a shout out to everyone that's listening, watching live, especially people that gave me shout outs on X today. This is a family, guys. I've said it a million times. You guys are all family. The love and support. Today is my birthday. Has just been incredible, and I can't think of a better way, honestly, to spend my birthday tonight than with you guys and Nick Tammaro covering the Travers card. So thank you, Pete. Paul, thanks also for your kind wishes on X today.
Of course.
Well, Nick's a track announcer. I might have him do a call of and now gaining on Halloran is Kravitz. Kravitz is gaining. Kravitz is getting closer.
Yeah, well, the good thing is I'm always going to be 10 lengths away from you.
With age,
whatever the number
work,
is.
right? Yeah, you can only
9
get
lengths.
1 length closer,
Humor me,
right?
Pete. Humor me, Pete.
Whatever. All right, no one cares. Let's move on. We're here to talk about horse racing, but I do, again, want to just thanks everyone for the happy birthday wishes. Guys, when I thought about who we should bring on tonight, it didn't take me long. We've had this gentleman on the show many times before. I consider him a friend. I've seen him many times. It's been a minute since I've actually seen him in person, but hopefully we'll see him soon. He's simply one of the best people in horse racing. You guys know him well. He handicaps. He's a track announcer. He does morning lines, and he's going to help everyone tonight through an incredible pick 5 sequence. Let's bring him on right now. I'm assuming from the great state of Texas. Here he is, Nick Tammaro. Nick, how you doing, buddy?
Here I am, Howard. What I wanted to know is whether the likes of Amy Adams and Andrew Garfield and Robert Plant are going around telling everybody that they share a birthday with Howard Kravitz.
I don't think so. I think it's Shakespeare's birthday also, Nick. I got.
Is it really?
Check.
I didn't shut up on my list here. I
Probably
guess
not
he's been
telling
dead
people,
too long.
though. Yeah, he's
All right,
probably
look,
not
Nick,
telling a lot of people.
Nick doing his homework to see what other people have birthdays on my birthday. Wow, Nick is a deep dive. Nick, how you doing tonight? We miss you being on the show. I know you're a busy guy. We appreciate you taking the time tonight. This is just simply one of the best cards of the year. It's a 14 race card. And we're going to talk about the pick 5, of course, Nick, the feature pick 5. I don't know if you've had a chance to look through some of the other races. I'm through about 11 of the 14 races. Some of the undercard races have great value. There's 2 monster maiden special weights. This is what Saratoga is all about, Nick.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's super exciting and very, very much looking forward to it. We've seen some terrific horses over the years debut on this card. Uncle Mo's the one that comes to mind most, maybe not most recently, but he was one of the bigger ones that I thought of. And yeah, we'll see those good 2-year-olds for sure. I've not done really a ton of work on the non-stakes. I kind of tried to focus on this, knowing that we go over it in detail. So yeah, really looking forward to it. I mean, there's some good racing leading into it on Thursday and Friday as well. The feature on Fridays, the Personal Ensign, and I know you guys not bringing up age or dates or anything like that, but when I was growing up, the Personal Ensign was always on Friday. And a sicko like me, when I was a junior in high school, I think I was either a sophomore or junior, I was desperate to try and find out who won the Personal Ensign because Beautiful Pleasure was running in it. And she was my favorite horse in 99 and 2000. I was a huge Jorge Chavez fan. So I loved Beautiful Pleasure. And it actually turned out that was the year that she won it. It was a 1.25 miles back then as well. And she had been beaten in the Gopher Wand, I believe, earlier at the meet by Heritage of Gold, who was trained by Tom Amis. And but came back and exacted a little revenge in the Personal Ensign. So looking forward to that. Idiomatic, randomized, get it on again. And I wouldn't sleep on a horse like Kijera with the way Phil Bauer's been going. The fact that she's in there at the very least is very interesting.
Kijera, Phil Bauer, not a lot of starts, but a lot of wins for Phil Bauer. It's
5 for 11, I think, is his mark right now, and he should have won the first with that filly on Sunday too.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And Dylan Davis is having a breakout meet. It's really been a very interesting meet. We can talk about that at a later time. But Nick hanging out, of course, with Pat Cummings goofing around the high school hallways, most likely, right, Nick?
No, so Philly Joe and Pat went to high school together.
Oh, Philly Joe and Pat. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
my bad.
No, I was.
My bad.
So ironically, I went to high school with a guy that I was somewhat friendly with, who actually introduced me to Jonathan Kinchin. He was the guy who kind of found JK and they became racing fans together. So yeah, there is sort of a high school connection. They're just a little bit more removed.
Chris Couples is here. I'll be wearing chalk eating weasel shirt for the stakes pick 5. Happy birthday, Howard. Chris, I get it. And by the way, Chris Couples hit the pick 6 last weekend for 72,000. Nick, I don't know if you saw that or not.
No, he sent me a message. I was thrilled to see it.
On $80.
I owe him an email as well. But no, he's terrific, and that was great to see. That was some excellent ticket construction, and there's nothing like making him pay when you're right.
Absolutely. Let's jump in, guys. We got the all stakes pick 5 starting in race 9. Could be chalky, maybe not. I think the last 3 of the 5 races are unbelievable. The first 2, you could maybe find a price and really get paid. Let's jump right in, guys. You're going to see picks, of course, on the bottom of the screen. If you're watching live, please make sure you comment in the live chat. Here we go. Let me bring it up on the screen right now. We're going to start in race 9, gentlemen. There it is. Race 9, the Resorts World Casino Sword Dancer. They're all grade 1, so I'm not going to keep saying grade 1. 344 Eastern. It's a small field of 6. The morning line favorite is one of 2 Godolphins in here for Charles Appleby. The number 4 Silver Knot. That one's going to be ridden by Pratt. Measured Time, the 2, is going to be ridden by William Buick. I think they're going to be tough to beat. I would expect one of them to win. Let's see who we're going with. On the bottom of the screen, I'm going 4-2-1. Nick is going 2-3-4. And look at my buddies, Pete and Paul. They are also going 4-2-1. Nick, generally speaking, we're going to start with you in all these conversations, whether you agree with us or not. You're going to go with Measured Time. I get it. He's talented. He won very well last time. Why do you think Measured Time is going to beat Silver Knot and the rest of the field on Saturday?
Yeah, so I think from a wagering perspective, the more interesting horse is Measured Time because he's not going to be favored. And Silver Knot Silver Knot's last 3 races have been terrific. But with that said, he's had a little bit go his way that maybe makes some of those performances and those winning margins a little exaggerated. And what I mean by that is the inside was where you wanted to be the day of the Bowling Green. They had taken the rails down that week, and there was a pretty pronounced inside bias, which we've seen happen at Saratoga over and over. They just took the rails down a little earlier this year than they normally do because they've been moving the rail position each week. In the Man of War, he got a beautiful ride by Flavian. He got a huge pace to run at, and none of the closers fired at all. In the Elkhorn, I think he caught the right horses at the right time. So with that said, I mean, I know it's a little ridiculous to try and come up with excuses for why 3 straight victories maybe haven't been as good as they look on paper. But with that said, I think Measured Times Manhattan individually is better than any of the races Silver Knot has run in this country. I thought this horse ran extremely well last time. He beat Nation's Pride, who of course came back and won the Arlington Million. But it wasn't just him. He beat Program Trading. He beat I'm Very Busy. He beat horses that had run well this year prior. He beat the Joey O'Brien horse, who I bet that didn't really run very well. And he looked good doing it. You know, William Buick kept him off the inside down the stretch, and he was going on with it here after contesting the pace the whole way. And I mean, he's really getting away from these horses. The X factor with him is the 1.5 miles. Right. He's not proven it 1.5 miles on turf. He's gone 1.5 miles before, but it was on synthetic. He handled it fine. I think these horses are sort of distance neutral, these Appleby horses. So I'm not really terribly worried about that. I thought I could inject a little bit of value, but my real opinion in the race is to try and split these 2 Godolphins with Farbridge. And I think that's where you can maybe find a little value in the exacta. So my Farbridge thought is that, without monopolizing all the time on this race, but
no, please do.
Again, another situation where the rails came down and the inside offered a pretty pronounced bias was Haskell Weekend. And this happens, or not Haskell Weekend, but Haskell Day. This has happened at Monmouth year in and year out as well. The UN is one of the, if you ever wonder what does it look like when a portion of a turf course is biased, watch the UN, right? I mean, every horse on the inside just fires right up the rail, including Grand Sonata, Tawny Port, who I liked, who I thought originally took kind of a dirty beat. I still think he sort of did. Farbridge was never near the rail. This horse was always outside. He never got a breather. He is a horse, in addition to having raced wide, he loves the rail. He ran some of his best races last year when he was able to save ground. Rosario's getting back on board. It's just supposed to be a drop back, 1 run up the inside. I'm hopeful it's enough to get him to split the exacta. But believe me, guys, I am not going to be surprised if this is an all blue exacta.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about Farbridge last time. We were hoping, Nick, he would tuck in. He was just never able to tuck in the United Nations. It just was wide, and he was uncovered to some extent. He just never had a chance. We've been a fan of Farbridge on this show in general. I still maintain that when Farbridge faced Carl Spackler on the maiden race at Gulfstream back in 23, that was literally, Nick, the best maiden turf race I think I've ever seen. It was unbelievable. You could just tell those were stake horses, you know, from the jump. And look, Farbridge was on the inside in that race that we watched, by the way, and just sort of, you know, clunked up for a third there, and really was never a threat. But certainly, if you can get this horse in the money, Pete and Paul, in for second and play, you know, exacta or a trifecta and split the Applebees, you're going to get paid, Pete. But we're not really messing around. We just think it's going to be the Applebees, Pete. Silver Knot, I should have Noah Maher on our channel right now. Noah Maher has been a big fan of this horse and cashed in April when you could actually get almost 6-1 on Silver Knot, which seems like a complete pipe dream these days. I would say this is the best North American horse in training. I mean, he's a Godolphin, but he's training in the States. To me, this is the best U.S.-based horse right now, 2 turns turf going long.
Yeah, it's cool it's always cool when you see a horse that switches to something, and you know, he didn't switch to a lot, but just started going a little bit longer, was definitely a little bit more forwardly placed. And once he did that and picked up Pratt, that usually helps a little bit as well. Once he did that, you know, the clock turned to 2024, and this horse just came out firing and has been super impressive. And the thing with him is it's the Saratoga turf, so if he gets out and he gets himself on the lead, or if he just sort of sits a nice stalking trip and can get the first run again, then he's just really tough. And he seems to be just opening up in the lane, and he's strong late at these long distance races. So he's just a lot to handle. So he's just a cool horse that I really like. And I'd like to see him continue his winning ways if possible, even if from a betting standpoint, it may not be the greatest thing in the world.
Paul, this is the last race. I think it's very versatile. What I'm most impressed about this, and Nick, I'd love your comments after Paul talks. I mean, he took heat the whole way, and I think he broke a track record for what it's worth. I don't think distance is the problem. Nick touched on it, Paul. I'm slightly worried about the distance with measured time. This horse, Silver Knot, can't be going any better right now. This was an awesome performance. Soldier Rising, by the way, coming up the rail for second.
Yeah, I think Nick touched on it, not worrying about a little extra distance. I don't think you really worry about a little extra distance with any of the Euros, let alone the Applebee's. I just automatically assume they can get an extra furlong without any difficulty whatsoever. I could have flipped a coin here between these two. I was not a Silver Knot believer. He beat me at Keeneland that day. I think you used the word, Howard, versatile. I think he can go either way. But, if there's ever a turf race over here that Mr. Pratt might not be the best turf rider in the race by just a smidgen. Wow. I mean, I think Buick is really elite, and I think Pratt. Let's call him a dead heat. My point is Pratt has an advantage, I think, in a lot of the races he rides because he's so damn good. So, but I think it's a toss-up. And as far as playing the race individually, not in a sequence, Nick clearly has the right idea. We don't really need an even money exacta. So if you want to get paid, just do us a favor, folks. If you play a caveman, pick 5, pick 1, please, and move on. Thank you.
Nick,
it's your public service announcement.
I was going to ask you 2 questions, Nick. And we'll move on right after these 2 questions. Number 1, which Godolphin gets the lead if you think it's going to be one of them? Of course, they're not going to battle each other on front end. And number 2, just to Paul's point, if you're playing horizontally, you can't possibly use both of them, especially in a caveman non-weighted situation, which a lot of players are not familiar with ABC and weighted, tickets, etc. Right? You just got to pick. If you think it's one of the Applebee's, you just got to pick one in your horizontal. So the pace scenario and the betting situation really quickly, Nick.
Yeah, I think you're spot on, both of you, with the wagering analysis. You have to choose one if you're doing a caveman style. If you're weighting it with an ABC type format, it's probably not going to be prudent to use 2 A's unless for some reason you've got some off the wall opinion coming up that I can't quite foresee. But you want to give yourself as much of an opportunity to get it right and go from there. I think measured time will show some speed. And then I think the jockeys are going to be instructed to kind of let them sort themselves out. If measured time drags Buick to the lead, I think Pratt's going to be happy sitting second. I don't think there's any concern with Silver Knot stalking. The interesting thing about Grant Sonata's last is that he was taken quite a bit farther off the pace than he had been in a race like the Monmouth, where he was actually right on top of a really strong pace. Javier is not exactly a guy that's going to come flying out of the gate asking for speed. So I think he'll try and go with a similar scenario to last time where he sits mid-pack and saves some ground. So I'm thinking one of the 2 of them leads it. I guess if you told me you have to make a decision, I'd say they probably let Buick grab it with measured time, and it might be easier for him to get the 1.5 mile dictating terms.
Yeah, Corey Sassman, I just want to see in the chat, breaking my Travers maiden this Saturday. Corey, we've not seen your name. Welcome to the show. Nick, we've grown a lot since you've been on last time. We're really proud of our viewers and listeners. It's awesome. Let's make lots of money. Birthday boy. Thank you, Corey. Appreciate it. Nick, is there any chance Soldier Rising, who's as honest as they come, second off the layoff, can get rid of his second and third ice and pull off a shocker here, or you just don't see it happening?
No, it's going to take something that he's never offered. I mean, one of the Godolphins has to scratch and the other has to not show to get that to happen. I mean, look, Soldier Rising's been a tough customer for a while. He loves to get in there. He just doesn't really love to win. Yeah. And he's made his connections a lot of money. He's given you a thrill. I actually bet him in the Sword Dancer 2 years ago when he ran third behind Gufo. And he's, he's given you a scare quite a few times, but never quite has enough to get the majority of it.
Yeah, I know the Clement barn well. I know them personally. He's an unbelievable horse, but I know they've been a little frustrated with just not being able to get there at certain times. And, they're dancing every dance, though, for sure. So you can't take anything away from. We'd all love to own Soldier Rising. It's just he's in tough spot after tough spot and just can't quite get there. Let's go on to the next race, guys. And again, the parade of grade ones just continue as I'm just flipping some things here on my screen here is Nick hosts podcasts. He knows what this is all about, but not a lot of live podcasts. You have time to revisit stuff, right, Nick? If you make a mistake or whatever.
I'm not hosting any live stuff. I'm not as I don't have the dexterity that you do, Howard.
All right, well, I don't know about that, but I do appreciate that. Not the personal lens. I'm in the wrong. Wow. See, there you go. See, I can
so much for the dexterity.
You jinxed him, Nick. Right?
I can screw up with the best of them here. Anyway, the next race really interesting here as we go on to race 10. It's the 24th, right? How did I screw that up? Yeah. Let's go on to race 10. Race 10 right here is the ballerina. Sorry about that, everyone. There it is. $500,000, 7 furlongs. This is for the older fillies and mares. What a field, Nick. I mean, people can complain a little bit if they want about field size, but I know you and I feel the same way, Nick, and I'm assuming Pete and Paul feel the same. I just want good competition. If there's 5 horses, if 4 of them can win, I consider that a good race. Maybe not from a betting standpoint, but just from a fan standpoint. And look who you got here lined up in the ballerina, basically the best, sprinting fillies and mares in the country. I'm sure we're going to see some of these in San Diego in 2.5 months. The Moorline favorite is the number 3, Vava, for Cherie DeVoe and IRAD. Second choice is Scylla, who I've been chasing a little bit lately, including last time in California, for Mott and Castellano. There's our picks on the bottom of the screen. Look at this, guys. We have 2 people. Nick and Pete are going with Scylla. Paul's going to go with the Speed of Society, and I'm going to be the chalk-eating weasel. People are like, Howard, you got a year older. Are you just picking chocolate all the time? No. I still like to find some sneaky horses, some cheeky winners, but I don't see it in this race in particular. Nick, let's go to you. Scylla is turning back. I love turnbacks. I thought she was pretty game against a very tough Adair Manor out west. What do you like about her on Saturday?
Yeah, going back to her debut, I was actually at Keeneland. I think Paul remembers the day that she debuted quite well. We were at Keeneland, and she ran extremely well, going 6 furlongs. And I remember watching that race, and I thought to myself, man, a Tappet out of closed hatches that's a full to Tacitus that can win at 6 furlongs. Like, I'm just, my heart is racing. And so she ended up being effective next time out at a mile. I think, long story short, I think Scylla might actually be at her best around 1 turn. And that's what I'm kind of banking on. So Mott's 8 for 18, cutting back in graded stakes on the dirt. Now, 3 of those were Cody's Wish. So you don't want to give him terribly much credit. I mean, Cody's Wish did so in those races at relatively short prices, but it's still a move that Mott's used with success. Interestingly, Scylla was supplemented to this race. So I don't know exactly what their plan was. I know that there was no way she was going to run against Idiomatic in the personal engine, and this might have been in Mott's hip pocket all along. I'll tell you the interesting thing about the Hirsch, Howard, and you referenced it, is that I don't think you could have convinced me beforehand that she was going to be in front of Adair Manor at the 3/8 pole, and that somehow at that point she wouldn't win. Right. I would have thought that maybe she made some loop swoop move around the outside and just went on with it. But watching the race, I thought to myself, man, she's keen. And she looked like she was loaded turning for home. Adair Manor ran by her and ran extremely well. I like the cutback. I think the cutback is the key here. I think she's a filly that can settle just off of it, make 1 run, and that might be enough to get it done. She's not going to be a huge price, but she's at least a reasonable alternative to a horse like Vava, who's a deserving heavy favorite.
Nick, I've liked Scylla all along. Pete and Paul can verify that. I've picked her several times and I've been right a few times. It's short prices, but look, I'll take 6 to 5, 7 to 5. Sometime that is value. I found this to be a weird spot, and I'd love to hear what Pete has to say. I mean, she's coming back in 3 weeks. It would be ridiculous to say the Clement Hirsch Grade 1 was a prep for this one, but you know what, Nick, it almost like feels that way. You know what I mean? Like they wanted to show speed, which they don't usually do, and now they're cutting back. Pete, I just found this coming back in 3 weeks is not really typical Mott. I guess you have to be confident with that move, Pete. I just found this to be a weird angle. I know that's not very, this doesn't sound like a professional handicapper, but it's just a strange spot to me.
Yeah, well, a couple things, and I think Nick hit on the one where I just think she just might be a better 1-turn horse who happens to just be really good at 2 turns. So it's one of those where it's not like she embarrasses herself at one or the other. And then if you look at just at the timing of her races, they're never really long. There's not a lot of space in between them. I mean, they haven't been 3 weeks, but they're generally less than 30 days, or they're in like the 4-week range. So 3 isn't necessarily a stretch. Yeah. Maybe she's just not a horse who needs a lot of time in between races. And the one thing,
sorry to interrupt you, she did come back at Churchill
2 weeks.
That was pretty short.
After the double dog there in 3 weeks and won by 7 with a 1:20 time form. So that's a good point.
Well, the one thing too with if she had, you look at the time form, she ran 3 straight 120s and then a 117. And if you do sort of the -20 that we tend to do basic, if she had like 300 buyers and then a 90, whatever that would have been, a 97 on that last one, she might be, people would look at her as maybe the favorite and the top, but her buyers are a little lower. And then, she bounces around from distance to distance and maybe just looks a little, it muddies the form a bit for a horse who never runs out of the money. But she just looks awesome. And I think at one turn, I think it just might be her day. And I think Vava has a couple of little vulnerabilities that I think maybe she could take advantage of.
I mean, Nick, you're a FIG guy. The time form, Craig Mulkowski's time form numbers, which we talk about a lot on the show, don't really jive with the buyers. What do you make of that, as Pete so aptly mentioned?
Yeah, I mean, the Fleur-de-Lis was a slow-paced race, so I think that's where you'll occasionally get the disparity. I mean, if you look at her pace figure line in that race, that's exactly what you want to see from a 2-turn filly who does her best work from off the pace. I mean, she uplines the whole way. She's running better relative to the field at each point of call, and this is something that she's done pretty regularly throughout her career. And that's a good example of it, at least in a top-level type race. The interesting thing about the Fleur-de-Lis is that prior to her running in the Clement Hirsch, it was kind of coming back a dud. Right. A Colt came out of it and lost an allowance race. Shotgun Hottie came back and kind of got beaten up in the Shoe-V. And I thought to myself, this makes me a little hesitant as far as the Clement Hirsch goes. But she ended up at least validating it and running a better race. It is, talking about speed figures, it is impossible to ignore that this horse has run 8 times and has only earned 2 different buyer speed figures her whole career, right?
That is, crazy. I didn't even notice that. But so she's going to run, but a 93 is not going to win this race, though. And 93 is not going to win
unless it's a meltdown of all meltdowns.
That's, that's kind of Nick Tammaro will come up with crap like that. Very interesting. I didn't even see that. Paul, enough of this Scylla talk, man. You're going to go with Society, who is very fast. And I guess the main question is Society is going to have to deal with Money's Gold, which we need to talk about. I was there last time for the Honorable Miss. The weirdest ride I've seen at IRAD, where Money's Gold, Paul, broke like a shot. And then I have no idea why. It must have been 2 instructions. Well, IRAD sort of took back and let Spirit Wind go to the lead. I cannot see that happening on Saturday, but you still like Society anyway to either let the speed go or just be the speed of the speed. I'll let you describe how she wins.
Yeah, I maybe I'm still living off watching her win that cotillion 2 years ago, but this horse is fast and this is a good, relatively good percentage move for Asmussen. Specialist at the distance. I think being inside of, I think Money's Gold is really good, Howard, but I don't see Money's Gold stacking up with the Scyllas, Societies, and Vavas of the world. Probably a good post for her out there, but I think this horse has to get a decent trip. And speaking of trips, if you go back and watch the last race, the aptly named Chicago Handicap for you Chicago people, Howard.
Yeah. I would click on it, Paul, and we'd watch it. But
I was going to say it. I managed to get a Churchill Downs replay, so hats off to me.
All right.
That was like demolition derby down the stretch, wasn't it? With Vava, and that was really mutual, high contact. A real cat fight, if you will. So I just thought that wasn't a terrible loss for Society. She does kind of have to have things go her way to a degree, and you can maybe make an argument that they won't. But I don't know. I think the price is going to be right. Tyler's riding great. As I said, it's a decent move for Asmussen. The horse loves 7 furlongs. I think this is a reasonable stab for me.
I agree with you. I've got her second, Paul. I actually wouldn't mind if she lets Mooney's Gold a little bit go and just come to the outside, because I think Society is just a better animal. And you talked about the Chicago, which we're not going to show the replay. And Nick does work for Twin Inspired, so I know he's very familiar with that race replay as well. I mean, you're being kind, Paul. I thought Vava actually came over on Society, and I was a little surprised there wasn't an inquiry, to be very honest with you. And I thought Society ran very well. We have to remember that was a long layoff, too, she was coming off of. Now she's second off the layoff. She's still only 5 years old. I think she's a serious threat in this race. She's going to have to deal with Money's Gold early. I love Vava, guys. This is a very difficult spot. I would never bet her on the win line and anything less than 8-5 here, and she's going to be less than 8-5. But I'm going to use her as a lone A. I just think she's as honest as she comes. And Nick, my thought here, and you've got her second, I'm sure you believe she's got a great chance to win. I just see her getting a fantastic trip off of Money's Gold and maybe Society. And if she's ready, I just think she's going to be very tough. She's probably the best older filly mare sprinter in the country.
Yeah, no question about it. I mean, and of course, shout out to the late Alva Star, who would have made this race even more interesting. They had some good battles prior to Alva Star's untimely demise. But, you know, look, Vava's the horse to beat by a mile. There's no arguing that whatsoever. The interesting thing to me about Vava is that she is really feasted in a number of moderately paced races. And so you wonder if Society going quickly might actually work to the detriment of Vava. That was kind of my hope with Scylla, was that they would go a little quicker. She's going to be coming from off of it. And I know people are looking at her pace figure line and probably saying, well, she won the Chicago. You watch that replay, and even with the bumping and upper stretch, she didn't look like the Vava that we saw on Derby Day. She didn't look quite as good as she did on Derby Day. Derby Day, she looked flawless. She looked really good. She got a great trip outside. The other thing is that she's been able to get this outside stalking trip basically in 3 straight starts. And there are a few horses in here that are supposed to keep her from being able to do that. So I think those are kind of the knocks. All in all, she's the horse to beat by a mile. She's a deserving heavy favorite. And it'll be interesting to see how the first quarter mile goes. Obviously, that'll go a long way towards determining what happens, because if Society comes out there guns blazing and, you know, wants to go 22 and 44 and change, and Vava's chasing that, it is going to make her vulnerable late. And then if Money's Gold doesn't quite push the issue and Society gets away a little slower and Vava's close, and Vava's going to be really tough to beat. I think that kind of goes without saying. On the Money's Gold topic, I'll just touch on briefly. You know, since the rules have changed and horses are not able to use Lasix in all stakes races, Money's Gold is probably the poster child for the difference between a horse's performance with and without Lasix. And I know that some people might argue, well, the without Lasix races are all graded stakes and the with Lasix races aren't. But at the same time, I mean, she has just been a shell of herself without Lasix. Right. Even going back to the narrow defeat to Red Carpet Ready, which was a good effort, it still wasn't nearly as good as what we had seen. And now this year, she's just not been the same without it.
Yeah, I think you make good points. I just want to quickly say something about the Chicago stake race and about Sill, and we'll move on. I think in that last race, Nick, that Vava was used earlier on purpose to stay closer to Society. I'm not sure that's what she wants to do. And so I think, in my opinion, at least, that might have made her look not quite as good because she had to go after Vava earlier than she wanted, because that's the race flow situation. I don't know if you agree with that. And with Scylla, guys, my only concern with Scylla, I love the horse. I don't know if she has that quick, like, burst going 7 furlongs that she's going to need. That's like my only real concern. I think she might be classy enough. She might be fast enough. I don't know if she's a sprinter. That's my only concern, Nick, with Scylla. I don't know if you want to push back on that or not, but
no, that's fair.
You think she is, obviously.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, look, the question that you ask yourself is, what is she going to do with this caliber of competition? Because we've not seen Scylla run against this kind of horse around one turn. All of her one-turn races up to this point have been against inferior competition. So, I mean, Beth's Dream is the best horse that she's faced around one turn. Beth's Dream is actually a very good horse, and I think won her 5th or 6th straight race at Gulfstream on Sunday. But still, I mean, it's not nearly the likes of Vava or Society or you know, few of these horses when they're in form.
Also be a little more concerned if she was going maybe down to 6. But
yeah,
I think 7's close enough. One quick thing I wanted to mention on Vava is she's won 5 out of the last 7. The 2 races she lost were off a layoff. She's off a bit of a layoff here. Not much, but, you know, just the layoff line is enough. And she's lost both of those races off the layoff, the last 2. So maybe she's one that just needs you know, this isn't the one you want to need to start for in this race, but maybe she just needs that one and then gets sharper second off. But if you're trying to look for something against the even money shot, you never know.
Sorry about that, Pete.
No.
It's going to be a great race. We're going to move on. I even mentioned Postisano Sunset, who I thought I know got a perfect trip, but ran a big race with a 97 Beyer, and Ian Wilkes is capable of improving a horse again. I mean, I wouldn't completely sleep on the rail horse. Anyway, it's going to be a great race. Let's go ahead and move on to one of the next three races, which I just thought was very difficult. And this Forgo, Nick, gave me a headache, man. I mean, I looked at this race for like 35 minutes. These horses are not consistent. There's fresh faces. The whole sprint division, Nick, let's just be honest, in the United States, and, unless you think the chosen Ron is just the bee's knees, and I'm not 100% sure that he is, this whole sprint division is just without elite power and Gunite is just sort of meh, isn't it? All across the country.
Yeah, I think we're realizing this year how lucky we were to have Jackie's Warrior, Elite Power, Gunite the last few years.
Yeah.
And, Skelly has not quite panned out to be that same crack sprinter for Asmussen. But yeah, this division just doesn't have a lot of depth. The top end of it is also not very good, to be honest. I mean, it's not particularly fast. It's just kind of a number of capable horses. But as far as this race goes, I mean, this is one of my, I guess I would say, stronger opinions of the card. I really like Gun Pilot, and my thought on Gun Pilot was that he had a great trip. He got a great ride, 2 back in the Churchill Downs. I'm a pretty big believer that the rail on Belmont Day, especially in the first half of the card, was very strong. And we've seen a number of run back performances that really bear that out. And Gun Pilot was 3 to 4 wide the whole way. He never got a break. He was always chasing outside. He was also coming back 5 weeks after the Churchill Downs and may have been a horse that was poised to take a bit of a step back now that he wasn't going to have quite that same good trip. He didn't quite have the punch. I'm interested in the workout report and seeing what the clockers think of how he's been going, but I have to bet him back off of that wide trip just because I believed so firmly that the inside was an advantage that day. And we're going to get a good price. I mean, this is a horse who was 3 to 5 last time. He's probably going to be around that morning line. David is the best morning line maker out there, and he made Mulligan a pretty short price favorite. I'm sure we'll touch on Mulligan, and I'll let you guys start that conversation. But I like Gun Pilot, and I'm looking forward to betting him.
Second best morning line maker, Nick. Obviously, present company included. Ooh. Obviously,
oh, wow. Those are fighting words on Twitter, man. Let me tell you, you'll get rung up for that.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm not sure X always agrees, but the hell with those clowns.
Nah, anyway. we love Nick Tammaro's morning lines. Nick, one of my few good opinions on Derby weekend was Gun Pilot. I really liked his Oaklawn race, and I thought he was coming into a big race, and I was fortunate enough to cash. Unfortunately, a lot of the rest of the weekend was a total disaster. Sierra Leone. But anyway, Gun Pilot, I agree. That was very inside favoring weekend, as we all know, and Gun Pilot can absolutely win this race. Nick, let's go to your second choice here, which is Run Classic, which I have second. Look at the Cagliostro love from myself, Pete, and Paul, by the way, is our top choice. I think Run Classic, in a weird, is the most likely winner. Is that crazy to say?
No.
Other than Gun Pilot, I suppose, in your opinion?
No, that's not crazy to say at all. No, look, this horse's Gulfstream Sprint was very good. And to be perfectly honest with you, this is a horse that was really frustrating to me because he showed tremendous promise last year with Brett Calhoun, and prior to that, really. And when you're a guy like Calhoun, who's obviously a multiple graded stake winning trainer, Breeders' Cup winning trainer, D'Angelo's not one of those guys that you want to see get one of your cast-offs. And not even that he was a cast-off; he was moved by his owner because D'Angelo's very good, and this is the kind of horse that is a sprinter that D'Angelo is always going to do well with. He ran really well in the Gulfstream Sprint. I mean, he really blew that field apart in the final quarter. So here he runs into Comedy Town. Comedy Town's the gray with the very announcer-friendly silks, the pink and yellow coming off the turn. This is an announcer's best friend, right? A gray with bright silks.
Absolutely. Here's Run Classic right here.
Right. And Run Classic angles out. He's got dead aim, but Comedy Town's a horse that was now second time dirt for Saffie Joseph. And this just in, Saffie Joseph is winning with about 97% of his starters right now. So no surprise, Comedy Town's able to stave him off. This is also at 6. Run Classic's probably a little better at 7. He's a super dangerous horse. I mean, I don't have any compelling reason to be against him. And I think this is a really good spot for him.
Yeah, I like him a lot. And you just watching that replay, Nick, it looks like Run Classic doesn't want necessarily 6, or he's not best at 6. I know he ran big in February, but just the way he strides out, he's 6 years old now. I think he's really going to appreciate the extra furlong here. And then you've got Mulligan at 8-5 morning line, who I'm not going to pat myself on the back, guys, for liking him last time. I just like the fact he was an outside post. He's been involved in slow-paced races, Nick. The weird thing is, who the hell knows what the pace is going to be in this race, because you have so much inconsistency. You don't have any real speed balls. I just don't know what to make of this pace, and I got to be honest, I don't really know what to make of this horse right now.
Yeah, good question. I mean, he's the key to the race, basically, and it seems like an understatement, or seems Captain Obvious with it as being that he's an 8-5 favorite. Worth noting, Rudy Brissett, 0 for 18 in his career in Grade 1s, only 2 of them hit the board. So, and those were not a bunch of big priced horses. And he's a barn that's relatively new. He's just really getting into the game at a big level now. He's been around 5-6 years, a former Bill Mott assistant, and a very competent trainer. Don't get me wrong, but I got to tell you, we might be dumping all over the sprint division, but these horses are a heck of a lot better than Coastal Mission and 90% Maddie. So I know this horse won very easily last time, and I have a lot of affinity for Coastal Mission, who's terrific, but Coastal Mission is a router that was cutting back. He's not really a sprinter. He's not really a horse that is at his best around 7/8. It was a slow paced race. Ever So Mischievous has completely forgotten how to run, and Prevalence's comeback was brief. So that was a very weak field. And this, though it might not really be a historic Grade 1 sprint race, is a much better field top to bottom. So he's going to have to run a lot better. He just seems like a really crappy gamble. At even at 2-1, totally. Right? He seems like the kind of horse that you're just supposed to say, you know what, he wins, I lose, I'm going to move on, I'm going to use my 1 and 5, try and get one of those 2 home, or even throwing Cagliostro into the mix for me and just try and beat the favorite altogether.
Yeah, Paul, you've got him second as well as Pete. It feels like Paul, and I'm going to let you talk about Cagliostro on the outside. And Mulligan's one of those horses, Paul and Nick and Pete, that you have to use horizontally, but you really don't want to win. Right. I mean, you shouldn't use as a B. You don't use 8-5s as Bs. If you're going to use this horse, if you're not going to use this horse as an A and you're an ABC player out there, this, in my opinion, Nick, this horse should be a C. Because if you don't love an 8-5, you're spending too much money, Paul and Pete and Nick, on a B at 8-5. Paul, I don't know if you want to touch on that and then talk about Cagliostro, Paul.
Yeah, I agree. One of my mantras, and especially on days like this, is you can't be afraid to get beat by good horses, because there's a lot of good horses running, and you can't play them all. So I didn't even have the Brissett stat, and we'll talk about that in the next race too, Nick. He'll either be 0 for 19 or 1 for 19 going into the next race. I agree with Nick about the field in that race last time. And obviously you say, well, the horse is 3 for 3 this year. He hasn't done anything wrong. I get all that, but I don't want this horse at 8-5 under any circumstances. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess defensively in a horizontal, maybe as a C, as you say, but in this sequence, you're looking at a half of a free square at the beginning with one of the Godolphins, and which turns it into a pick 4.5, I guess. And if you get a horse like this at 8-5 in the sequence, then you maybe can afford a bowl of mac and cheese at the mac and cheese truck behind the 4-Star Dave, and you could be served by Junior Alvarado's son, Aiden, which would be the highlight of your day. But I'm not interested in this horse at 8-5. Could beat me. It's Pratt. No problem. The horse beats me. I get beat a lot. I like the cutback. You mentioned the cutback, Howard, on Cagliostro. I thought that effort in the Hanshin was pretty good. I didn't think he had to go to the lead or get to the lead that soon, but definitely a change in style on this horse this year. I don't obviously be looking for him to come from behind in a one-turn situation. I like the fact that Hanshin is a one-turn mile. So I like the outside post. I can sit outside the speed. So I thought there was a lot to like. And lastly, Wathan Racing has really been on a roll seemingly everywhere recently. So
name drop when I was at Ascot. Name drop. I saw a lot of Wathan Racing horses, and it was pretty cool to see those silks. Pete, you feel the same way? I have nothing to add from what Paul said. I love the turn back, and I love the spot here for this horse.
Yeah, and I agree with the one-turn mile thing, and I don't mind. I mean, obviously you lose Pratt, you don't love that, but at least Jose has had the horse 2 and 3 back and has had some success, so knows the horse a bit. And even 2 back, I mean, ran a winning race just got caught by a really good horse, Highland Falls, and maybe that was a little longer than this horse wants to go, but still at least ran the race that I think if he can run it this time, I think that race can win this. But, plus you do want a little bit of a price, and 9-2, if you can get 9-2 on this horse, I think you're going to be pretty happy.
Yeah. Nick, I chased Anchor a bunch of times at Churchill, especially last time I had a nice trifecta with him off of a weird trip 2 starts back. Yeah. What do you do with Baby Yoda? This is a pretty wide open field, even though I know you love Gun Pilot. If it's not Gun Pilot, I would think you would say could be 3 or 4 or 5 others, maybe. Who knows?
Yeah, Anchor is the kind of horse that you throw out at your own risk, right? With Phil Bauer in play, and that's a horse that's improved of late. He's got some speed. He probably has the biggest influence on the race because he's going to want to show speed, and Mulligan is directly to his inside. So, Mulligan is not going to get any free pass to the lead. If anybody was thinking that was possible. Baby Yoda's a tough read. He was an interesting horse 2 back, and he was terrible last time. I don't know what.
Such a weird horse, Nick.
He is.
What a weird career he's had.
One of racing's strangest horses, no doubt about it. He's just when he's been on his look, he ran this one gigantic race that we all spent the next 2 years waiting for it to happen again, and of course he beat Olympiad that day, which was hysterical given what Olympiad did afterwards. But I bet Olympiad that day, like every smart person that I know, because nobody liked Baby Yoda. And so he's a tough read. The interesting thing to me about Cagliostro, and maybe why I was a slight bit unsure of how he was going to handle the 7/8, is this horse has gotten really good since they put blinkers on. And that's actually made him a lot quicker early. So how does it translate to a sprint race? I'm not positive. What I do know is that this horse has gotten really good. And Cherie has rapidly become one of the most trustworthy trainers out there with good horses. She's just producing left and right with good horses over and over. So, he seems interesting. I agree. It's a fun race, and, one where I'm happy to take a little bit of a stand, but I'm also not going to let myself be blown out of the water with just a solo type opinion on Gun Pilot, because I could see Cagliostro or Run Classic winning this race for sure.
I agree. TJ Pop said both hands will bet on the 6. That's the great thing about horse racing, Nick. You've been around the game a long time, like all of us. Makes the game great. Everyone's got different opinions. Some people love Mulligan. We're lukewarm at best with Mulligan. It's going to be interesting. Guys, the next 2 races are loaded, and let's move on, Nick, because I don't want to keep you up too late here, and I'm sure you've had a busy day. The Jerkins, Nick, I'm just going to flat out say it. This is the race of the day, maybe one of the races of the year, in my opinion, with or without Bookham Dano. Now, Paul, you've got a little bit on intel of Bookham Dano. At least you tried to. Why don't you spend 20 seconds telling everyone what you attempted to do? Nick, of course, Paul works for the Saratoga Special.
Right.
Paul?
Yeah, so I just took a shot. I had a chance to do the preview on Bookham Dano for the Woody Stevens, and talked. And we had Jay Briccione on the podcast, Howard, after he won. So yes, I did text Jay today and say, well, I see you in Saratoga this weekend. And got the old, we haven't decided yet. Should be a great race. So I think tomorrow, I think Derek Ryan indicated Wednesday. We've talked about it off air. The horses are gelding, so there's no stallion value. The race at Charlestown is worth the same money, and it's probably an easier field than this. As most fields would be.
Everything's an easier field than this,
But, so I don't know. Look at this is Atlantic 6. These are 6 guys from the Jersey Shore. They've had some success, but, they haven't had $1 million horse before this, and they got a chance to pick up another $300,000 at Charlestown Friday night. They might say, we hear West Virginia is nice at this time of year. I certainly hope he comes. I think it takes a great race and makes it even greater. But to your point, Howard, I think it's if I had a bet, I'd say he wouldn't be coming. But, they're kind of playing with house money on this horse at this point at almost $1 million.
Picks are on the bottom of the screen. A lot of domestic product love from the 4 of us here. I'm going 3-5-2. Nick is going 3-11-8. Pete's going 3-8-5. Paul's the only one not going domestic product. He's going 5-8-3. Nick, we read off the numbers because people are going to be listening at some point and not, watch the video, etc. I want everyone to know at home, first of all, that the only reason I don't have book him down in my top 3 is I'm personally going off the assumption that he's going to Charlestown. If he was in this race, I would have Bookham Dano in my top 3, but I would not have Bookham Dano on top. Nick, let's talk about domestic product. Your top pick, my top pick, Pete's top pick. This has been a very interesting journey with this horse. They thought, Chad maybe thought he was 2 turns. He went back to 1 turn last time. I know the fig wasn't tremendous last time. The field wasn't great, but the visual last time by domestic product was just unbelievable. And I've got a feeling this Son of Practical Joke is just a better 1-turn horse. And it sure looked that way last time. You obviously agree, Nick.
Yeah, I mean, look, 7 years ago, his sire did exactly this and came into this race cutting back in distance from the Haskell. That was really more of a full cutback. The rigors of the Derby trail have ruined a lot of horses over the years, no question about it. And the good thing about this horse is that, Seth Klarman allows Chad Brown almost complete autonomy to decide what to do with horses. And when he came out of the Derby, they said, we'll see we're going to see if we'll send him long or figure out where he is. And then I think Flavian's ride in the Pegasus was just bad enough for them to determine that he wanted to go around 1 turn. And the Dwyer came up perfect time-wise. He came back in a little bit of an un-Chad-like 3 weeks. And he obliterated this field. And I actually just noticed when you pulled up the chart that Save the Trees won subsequently. I did not realize that. Bilal came back and bettered his Beyer speed figure, I believe, by 6 points. So, though this field obviously had no stars in it, it wasn't that bad. And I mean, domestic product just walloped them. They turned for home here, and he's loaded. Once Flavian moves his hands a little bit, he's just gone away from them. And now you start to look at his form and you think maybe he did want to go shorter all along. Maybe he won that Tampa Bay Derby simply because it was a slow-paced race and he was able to race forwardly, and it starts to make a little bit more sense. I think the thing that people are going to read into a little too much is that Flavian decided to go here. I think he this is a pretty obvious choice for him, right? This is a barn that he's in pretty firmly.
Right.
And, the more he can ride for Chad, the better. He's obviously won a lot of big, important races for both the ownership and for Chad. And the other 3 horses that he rode are from barns that if they can get Flavian, they're still going to get him. Right. It's not a matter of whether he's competing for anyone there. So he just felt like the right fit. I do worry that we're on to the same thing and that this horse's price is going to go down quite a bit. I don't know how much it could go down. Obviously, Bookham Dano's out. He could end up going off close to favoritism or vie for it with Prince of Monaco, but he just felt like the right fit at 7/8 at this time for me.
I agree with everything you said. And look, the Dwyer, you said, few horses came back, but it was a 4-horse field. I'm just big on the visual, and I just love what I saw. And also, Nick, I just think this horse is going to sit a great trip. The one's got to go world record. Speakeasy is more mid-pack, and there's got to be some speed in this race. Although you have a very interesting speed horse for second, we're going to talk about here from the outside. Just looks like Flavian's going to trip out here, Nick, and really get a nice ground saving, maybe inside, then tip outside, kind of angle out in the stretch situation. By the way, this horse, a Painter mare. How about a little shout out to Painter, by the way, with came back from a bad, not an injury, I think an illness, and it was pretty cool. Let's talk about I think it's Little Knee. Nick, I thought you had this horse second because you misread the name. You're like, wait a minute, where's the 2 letters that are missing? This horse, Nick, I don't love him as much as you do, but I think he's fascinating. Breaking from the far outside, a real speed demon. A little bit of run happy feel for you here, Nick.
Yeah, I don't know if he's quite quick enough to get the lead. I think Jose might be totally content with stalking outside. Don't sleep on this horse. Everybody out there that is looking at him and thinking, Jersey form. He ran extremely well last time out. First of all, Eddie Owens is a very good trainer, very underrated, totally under the radar. This horse ran extremely well last time out. I know Proprietary Trade came back and won a claiming race, but he is outside stalking Proprietary Trade, puts him away very easily. And it's one of those situations where he's got to do all the running when it counts. So he has to, at this point, get command, put the speed away, and still be ready for the fresh challenge coming from Bookham Dano, who gets this brilliant split right here in a really excellent ride, and now has dead aim on Little Knee. And at this point, when I was watching this race live, I thought, okay, well, Bookham Dano's going to draw off and win by 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Little Knee is not giving an inch. I mean, he is fighting him all the way to the wire and really puts up a heck of a fight. I wasn't even sure on the live run through if Bookham Dano got up. I thought he did. And I mean, he certainly didn't get up by much. So I thought this was a really good performance. Mark Cassie's having an excellent meet. He's got good numbers with horses off trainer changes on the dirt. So he felt like one that was going to be a bigger price than he deserved to be. And I wanted to kind of use him for that reason.
The distance going 7 and the rail horse. Can you touch on those 2 issues for Little Knee for people that agree with you that like this horse?
I'm not as concerned about World Record being in there, especially with Little Knee being drawn so well outside. If World Record shows speed, which he should, you don't put Luis Saez on and draw the rail expecting to stalk. So they're going to go, World Record rode a really strong inside bias last time. He's tough to take for that reason. I can't really take him seriously. That being said, he ran well in the Max Field. He ran better than it looks on paper because he broke poorly and then had to kind of rush up into contention. So he's not the most ridiculous horse. I would rather have Little Knee stalking outside than World Record, who's going to kind of have to do all the heavy lifting. But yeah, I'm not terribly worried about it being a situation where Little Knee stalks outside. And I will say, and I mean, this is purely anecdotal, but I found myself liking more horses that are going to be in stalking forwardly placed spots on the Saratoga dirt this meet. And they have an edge. There's a huge advantage to being forwardly placed on the dirt there. We just don't see a lot of these races come apart at all. And I think Little Knee will end up getting a really good trip stalking outside.
I'm assuming you agree with this pace projector in theory, Nick?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, Bookham Dano in and out doesn't really he has no influence on the pace. So it feels that way. Yeah, I would imagine that Little Knee will be chasing it and World Record will be setting it. And, you have horses that are X factors, like obviously Vetriano has shown speed, but he's been doing it longer. Speakeasy's not really fast enough to get the lead. And then you've got a lot of horses that want to be, mid-pack, late running types. I guess the other horse that the pace projector indicated should be forwardly placed is Otto the Conqueror. He's not really much of a speedball, though. He's probably going to be content to settle in a stalking spot himself. So it'll probably be those 2 on the lead or close to it. They'll go somewhat quickly, but they won't go as quickly as they did in the Woody Stevens. That's for sure.
They won't. No, they won't. Nick, now's your chance to rip on Bob Baffert if you want. No one listens to this show. No one will find out. I'm just kidding about that. Just not fall in love with the West Coast horses, or what is it with Prince of Monaco you don't like? Because I thought he ran unbelievably off the layoff last time.
He did run very well. Yeah, Bob's good off the layoff too. So no great surprise. Don't necessarily love and I guess it was by design that he ran this horse off the long break. Couple of things on him. So I couldn't erase the memory of Baffert's 2 horses running poorly in this race last year. I know it was on a sloppy track after there was rain mid-card, but it worried me a little bit. I also, and again, I will tell everybody, this is not my specialty by any means. There are people out there who do it that are a lot better. I did not like this horse's last 2 workouts at Del Mar. I thought he was very dull in both of them. I thought he was very hard used. Again, I don't watch workouts all that regularly, so definitely I'm not going to be confused with Mike Welsh or John Nichols or anybody out there who's good at clocking. But I didn't love the way he looked, and I know Baffert kind of smashed 3 workouts in together pretty close, so it looks like he might be trying to catch up a little bit fitness-wise, and I think he's going to need to be on his top game for this. He was my 4th pick, so I mean, I don't have a huge feeling against him. I just wanted to go a slightly different direction with better price horses.
I hear you. Pete and Paul, I'll let you guys talk for just a minute about your opinions. We want to let Nick have most of the show tonight and talk, and then we got to talk about the Travers. And again, I told Nick would be about an hour or so. So
the Astros are in the 4th inning. You got plenty of time.
Oh, okay, cool. Thank you. I appreciate that. Sorry about that, Nick. Look, we got the White Sox in town, so we don't, they're barely a major league team. So, and the Cubs are playing like a minor league team anyway, in general. Pete, I'll let you. Oh, sorry, I caught him on a cough.
Good. Yeah, no, I'm good.
Pete, you can go anywhere you'd like to with this race. We haven't really talked about Bookham Dano. We can show him. I just have a feeling he's not going to go here, but obviously if he does go here, he's a major threat.
Yeah, he's a really cool horse that like Paul said, we just, we had an owner on. We just really like this horse. And I mean, he's just getting good. And it's one of those where you want him to run selfishly from a fan standpoint, because you want this race to be as good as possible. And again, if there is some speed up front, then, he runs the perfect trip. I was a little, it's a little bit concerned. I thought he should have gone by a little easier last time. Maybe that's more Little Knee than Bookham Dano, but it came up nice. I mean, from a figure standpoint, he had a lifetime buyer top, lifetime time form top, and it was going 6, so he didn't have as much time to get there. So he's just really good. I don't really have any knocks against him. I mean, he's just a horse that if he's in it, he's got a shot. If he goes to Charlestown, obviously, I'm assuming, I didn't look at the field there, but I'm assuming he'll be pretty tough to beat there as well.
Anything else you want to add, Pete? We haven't talked about Speakeasy. We haven't talked about
Speakeasy's the most. I don't know, Nick. What do you think about Speakeasy, Nick? Do you have any thoughts on him? Because he just looks impressive. I mean, he looks so impressive, and I think people thought of him as a potential. I mean, I assume people thought of him as a potential Derby type horse after that impressive maiden win, and then he had to go on the shelf, and he came back. It was fine. It's just, this might be a little bit too much too soon after being off the layoff and then just beating a relatively weak allowance field. This might just be a little bit too much, but I think he's in there. I don't think from a talent standpoint, he lacks anything to be in this field. I just think maybe seasoning and, race, history is probably the only thing against him.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with all that. I mean, they kind of have to be here, right? You've got a 3-year-old that's ready for a grade 1 and one of the more important races around one turn for 3-year-olds of the year. So, his comeback was against a relatively modest one other than field. The second choice was Mariachi, who's a New York bred. And it was one of those races where in mid-stretch, it kind of felt like, oh, one of these horses is probably going to have to win. But Speakeasy was just like, okay, here I am, and he got there just in time. Early part of the card that day, I thought the inside was pretty heavy. There were a couple horses who tried to make some inside moves that totally stalled out. And Speakeasy did make his move outside. The interesting thing about him going into that race was that, according to the clockers, he was getting outworked left and right by Bandita. And so he was a little... there were a lot of people out there who didn't like him for that reason. Bandita came back and ran an allowance race last Saturday and got drilled by Nick Style. Didn't get out of the gate. Yeah. So, Speakeasy's a horse that obviously has a ton of talent. He somehow went off 8-1 despite having pretty good form. And Little Knee was not completely a private purchase. There was an ownership interest that was bought into him. He's not a total private purchase.
Okay.
But anyway, he's a horse that obviously has some ability. He went off this big price despite a good workout report because there was a really fancied runner from Gustavo Delgado's barn who ended up finishing second. So he's interesting, right? He's one of the horses that makes this a fun race because he's got some ability. I just wonder if it might be a little too much too soon. But if you told me you were long on Speakeasy, he'd probably be the horse that you'd be most interested in long term.
By the way, Pletcher, 1 for 21 in grade 1 dirt sprints for whatever that's worth.
Really?
Interesting.
Yeah, 5 years, past 5 years. Yeah.
The workouts are very slow and weird. I've got to get some more information about that, Nick. I mean, for Pletcher, they're incredibly slow works. Maybe this horse is a little bit, ouchy and sensitive feet. I don't know what's going on there. I'll have to find out. Matt Miller is in the chat, by the way, Nick. Don't sleep on this horse, quote unquote, is one of those comments Nick makes with remarkable accuracy. That's Matt's nice way of saying, everyone, you better pay attention to Little Knee on the outside on Saturday. This is a great race, guys. Paul, sorry, I didn't want to give you short shrift. Any thoughts, Paul? I'm going to show up some more comments. Dewey Fan also wants to know from you, Nick, what do you think about the morning line? I'll let Paul comment about this race. Nick, morning line will go on the Travers.
Yeah, wide open. I thought even though, the race favored closes, I did think that Prince of Monaco lost touch with the field a lot more than I would pretty much ever expect from a Baffert horse, especially a sprinter. Came running and Bookham Dano had to jump on him and held on, although this horse was very nearly got him at the end. But
way back here is Prince of Monaco in the Starlight race.
Way back.
Go ahead.
Yeah, way back.
They were flying though. They went 43 to the half.
Yeah, they were motoring on a Belmont Stakes at Saratoga Day for sure. But I in an odd way, and I put Pratt on any horse, but maybe Johnny V is a good fit for this horse. I think he'll be. Certainly a little more aggressive than that. That was a lot of circumstance, the field. I hear what Nick's saying, the 3 workouts in 11 days isn't great. But I will tell you this, though, if this horse shows up, like physically shows up, I think he might be okay because this is the type of horse that Baffert, I would assume, would have no qualms about not putting on the plane, unless he's there. Or I'm not there yet, so I don't know. But this would be, if he doesn't think he's ready, he may just not even get on the plane. So that's all. 4-1, decent price. Very, very. We haven't talked about Timberlake yet, who maybe one turn hits him right between the eyes. We don't know.
Yeah.
So
I've just never been a fan of his. I know Jake Hayes mentioned his Nick a bunch of times. I just don't think he's that good. I don't want to be disrespectful, but Nick, any quick thoughts on the morning line? I'm not going to go back and bring up everything, but just did anything stick out to you? I'm not sure what Dewey fan in the chat was inferring, but is there any comments? We all think David Aragon does a great job, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, David does an outstanding job. And, the thing you got to remember about these cards is that this thing came out Sunday at 4, and he had, or even later than that, probably 4 Pacific time. But he had the morning line out by noon the next day. It's tough to turn it around like that. Now I'm going to face the same scenario at Keeneland in 6 weeks or so when they draw 2 cards on Monday and they want them both final on Tuesday. So, it's just how it goes. So I thought it was fine. I mean, I thought maybe Little Knee was a little high. If Bookham Dano was the price that he was, given the separation between the two. But you've got to weigh in the fact that connections play some impact on it. Obviously, Bookham Dano he's becoming a household name. He was a huge favorite in the Jersey Shore too. So no, it looked like it was pretty solid to me. And the only morning line that I would probably, if David and I were having a conversation with it, I would ask him if he was a little aggressive on Mulligan. I think 8-5 is maybe a little low on Mulligan, but at the same time, he's a horse that got bet off the board last time out. I mean, he got pounded late.
Yeah.
And so, you want to weigh that in when you're making the morning line. You want to definitely consider horses that the public really go after hard each time.
Nick, just tell our buddy Jim Goodman to put a word in for you and give you a little bit of break and more time with the Keeneland morning line. I mean, it's not like Keeneland, real easy place to make up morning line. You got horses coming from all over the country, of course.
They're very charitable with me. If I take until the afternoon that day, they will give me no hard time. I promise.
Wow.
But yeah, it's they still want it.
Guys, Nick, because you do have a little bit extra time, I won't rush through this. Let me just ask everyone quick whip around. First Travers Stakes, not first memory, but most memorable Travers in your opinion that just comes to mind right away. Nick, I'll let you go first.
Oh gosh, I mean, I'd say probably different answers for betting versus fandom, but
you can go fandom. I think fandom was my angle there.
Yeah, fandom. There were some really good ones. Unshaded and Albert the Great was one of the early ones when I was becoming a fan of the game. Really, really in a big way that I remember. And so those two I really liked. And then Fly Down had a great battle with the Fleet Express. I was there for Stay Thirsty. That was my first Travers on site, so I really enjoyed that one. And those were probably the ones that stick out to me. I'm forgetting. I was at Trinity Meadows in '94 watching on a TV screen with my dad when Holy Bull won. So, Holy Bull 30 years ago. And I think I have a photo in my phone of Andy Serling and I visiting Holy Bull at Godolphin at Darley 10 years ago. So, yeah, he'd be the first memory that I had, and one that I certainly don't want to forget anytime soon, because that was a phenomenal Travers.
Sonny Hine, right? I mean, what a horse.
Kroll.
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 My bad.
Jimmy Crowley went by, right? Yeah, Sonny Hine would skip away.
My bad. Pete and Paul, real quick. I'll go, guys. The Birdstone to me in 2004. I mean, I wasn't there, but if you watch the video, it's like the darkest I think a race has ever been run. I think Paul, were you there, Paul? I mean, just on video, it was like literally the darkest race I've ever seen without lights. And of course, we all know afterwards, Mary Lou and the whole thing. For me, it was Birdstone. Real quick, Pete and Paul, just any race in particular in the Travers that just comes to mind?
My favorite is 89, Easy Goer. He's on the wall back there. My favorite all time. For some reason, the one that I remember watching on my phone I was in a casino in New Orleans and watched VE Day and was so pissed because I had nothing to VE Day, but I liked him going in, and I didn't care that much. I don't remember that much about it. I just remember sitting at a bar in a casino in New Orleans like, shit, I can't believe I didn't have that horse in my whatever sequence I was losing on that day.
Paul, you've seen a bunch of them.
I think I'm pretty sure the first one I saw in person was Thunder Rumble, the New York bred in 1992. Sorry. And obviously the most memorable, of course, is Catholic Boy, both from fandom and bettingdom. because
I think Nick was in preschool in '92. What?
Here we go.
Paul, I thought you had a ticket from when you saw Man of War live. You didn't.
Yeah, there we go. See, Nick, here we go, Nick. Look what I started.
Guys,
try to be honest and give an honest answer and go back 32 years. And hey, look, I could have been before that. We're going to go with that one now.
Guys, we have almost 400 people watching right now live. We cannot thank everyone enough for listening and watching. Please hit that subscribe on the bottom right-hand side of the screen if you've not done that, and the notification bell at the top right, and the like button underneath if you're on YouTube. Again, thank you very much for joining us. Last race we're going to be covering, Grade 1, of course, Travers, $1.25 million. Of course, it's for 3-year-olds, Midsummer Derby, mile and a quarter. What an incredible field of 8 horses. Just quality on top of quality, including a very, very interesting and exciting entry on the rail with the Grizzly Bear, number 1, Torpedo Anna. David Aragona, talk about morning lines, Nick. What a tough morning line situation this is. He's got Dornoch as the favorite at 5-2. Co-second choices, Torpedo Anna and Fierceness, and Sierra Leone as right now a soft fourth choice, 7-2. Here comes our picks. Are we going with Sierra Leone? You know the history of this channel, of course, Nick, and me personally with Sierra Leone. I had the toughest time on what to do in this race. Let's see what Howard and everyone else did. Oh boy, I can't give it up, guys. I can't give it up. I'm going with Sierra Leone. I'm going 2-4-7. Nick, I feel so much better. Nick is also going Sierra Leone, 2-8-1. Pete's going 2-7-4, and Paul's the big poo-poo, Pete. Paul's throwing the big poo-poo out there, going with Dornoch. We can talk about this race for an hour. We're not going to do that. Obviously, we'll talk about 15 minutes here. Nick, I'm going to start with you. First of all, it's an incredible race. Secondly, there almost has to be a legitimate pace in this race.
Exactly. Right. And I mean, it is, I will say that picking Sierra Leone in a way feels like a bit of a fool's errand because we've seen this play out too many times. However, you go and watch his last 3 races and there are legitimate excuses each time. He has consistently run around the same speed figure. He ran a faster race last time. He's capable of being a little bit closer, I think. He doesn't have to be in terms of how this race is going to play out at a mile and a quarter. But it just, every way you envision looking at this race unfold, you come to the same conclusion that they have to go quickly and nobody's going to benefit more than him. Right. I mean, all he has to do is avoid some of his own shenanigans that have plagued him in the past, like, basically losing contact on the turn in the Belmont and being forced to angle in the Jim Dandy, which John Velasquez contributed to quite a bit. If he is able to just get that trip sitting back to make one run, it has to unfold in his favor, and he should be able to finally cash in. But I will say that, me and I think a lot of other people have the pen ready for our divorce papers with Sierra Leone if it doesn't go the way it's supposed to, because we've seen it now play out 3 times in a row. The Derby, he wasn't a short price. And I think when all is said and done, he's going to be the second choice, if not the favorite in here, because the public just loves this horse and he makes too much sense.
Wait, do you think Sierra Leone will be second choice or favorite in this race?
I think there's a very strong chance of that. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Surprised to hear you say that.
Well, and look, I think David made an excellent line, because I think you could really go any of the 4 ways on those top 4 horses. And I kind of initially, after the Jim Dandy, I sort of poo-pooed the idea that Torpedo Anna could be favored in here. But now you look at the thoroughgraphs especially, and she's not really slow on those. So It's a very evenly matched race. I mean, this as you see, and I'm sure as you guys talked about when you recap the race, Johnny V putting Fierceness in the middle of the track is just a cagey veteran move, right? Yeah. He takes a peek under his right shoulder at mid-stretch because he's expecting Sierra Leone to be on the outside. He finds out that he's inside. He gradually works Fierceness back towards the rail just to do a little bit of intimidating there. But the bottom line is that Fierceness always has his measure and was never really going to be caught that day. I picked Fierceness second. Guys, I'll be honest with you. I'm not going to be surprised if he wins this race. I'm not going to be beaten by Fierceness. I still think that he is as talented as any horse in this crop. I think that I don't believe in any kind of good race, bad race pattern. What I believe in is that this is a horse that is sort of a classic paper tiger. He is really good when things go his way, and he's really bad when they don't. But things could go his way, right? Dornoch could end up on the lead and he's stalking outside. One thing we know is that he can go somewhat quickly if he's chasing freely. He just can't take heat. He doesn't like to get into a fight. He likes to dictate terms to everybody else, even when he's on the outside. We'll see what happens, but I think he's too good to be overlooked in here.
Matt Miller taking a hard pass on one of the best races of the year. Come on, Matt. Take a stand. No effing way, hard pass. Might even throw off it. But the main reason, Nick, just to let you know, is because Sierra Leone has whoops, I'm sorry, a little blurry here. Because Sierra Leone has just stuffed us in a locker too many times. Just hurts too much. Let me comment on Fiercest, and I want to hear your guys' opinion, Pete and Paul, and then we'll go on to some other things. We are against Fiercest in our top three. And Nick, feel free to tell me I'm completely wrong. I just am completely against him in this race, and I'll tell you why. First of all, I think he's going to be the favorite, in my opinion. That's my opinion, number one. Number two, this notion that everyone knows he's getting the perfect trip, right? Just sitting outside Dornoch, blah, blah, blah. That's going to lower his price. It's Rapoli and Velasquez, and Rapoli basically said, a few days ago, next, no one should bother, cheeky, but no one should bother showing up. This horse looks so good. Look at Fiercest's two big wins. No. Okay. The Florida Derby was, I don't want to be too disrespectful. It was a joke this year. I'm sorry. It was not a good field. He just wired him, right? The Jim Dandy, he sat off a horse that had no chance and easily went by. I don't see Fierceness, in theory, guys, sitting off a Dornoch and what? He's just going to blow by Dornoch? Like, I don't see that. And if Torpedo goes, guys, and Dornoch is sitting off and Fierceness is 3 wide, what's going to happen? Dornoch's going to put away Torpedo, and then Fierce is going to put away all those horses. He's not a fighter, guys, and I think this is a much more difficult situation. And that's why I've got Dornoch second. I know you don't have Dornoch anywhere, Nick, but Paul and Pete, we like Dornoch. That horse fights. I don't think he's just going to let Fierceness by, Pete and Paul. I am totally against Fierceness on Saturday, and like I was in the Derby. And if I'm wrong, guys, I'm wrong. Pete
Nick,
and Paul?
I was gonna ask Nick real quick. What were your thoughts on after the Jim Dandy where they said we figured it out, he needs a little more space, we're gonna probably point to Pennsylvania Derby, and then when Mindframe had the injury, now they pointed him here. Do you put any stock in that now they're sort of going off what this planned schedule was, just because obviously they're going to want a horse. Rapoli's going to want a horse in this race, especially a horse this good who could easily win it. But do you put any stock into that being a question mark or no?
Not really. I mean, Mike Rapoli has an insatiable desire to be heard. And I think anytime he can offer his opinion, he's going to take it. So I don't really think terribly much of it as an overall point. People also really, and horsemen are guilty of it as well, all of this specialization and, he needs time, or, he needs this. And it's like, come on, man, the horse ran one of the best races of his career off a month and a half. He ran perfectly fine in the Breeders' Cup a month after the Champagne. So it becomes,
it doesn't line up, right? It doesn't really line up with the story. Yeah.
Right. What he was in the Derby was a horse that obviously couldn't withstand a 3-wide chasing trip in a fast-paced race. And what Howard's alluding to is that you think that's what's going to happen in this race, and I think there's a pretty strong chance of it. I don't want to have an argument with that at all. I don't really have a counter argument to it. I think in many ways, the horse that has the biggest impact on Fierceness's finishing position in here by far and away is Torpedo Anna. Yeah. Because if Torpedo Anna shows speed from the rail, this becomes a significantly faster race. And she is every bit quick enough on paper to be a real factor in the opening half mile. And, it's not one of those scenarios where you have a female horse that is giving up something in terms of running style. She obviously can't break like this. If she breaks like this, there's a pretty decent chance that Fierceness is going to win, in my opinion, because he's going to be right outside Dornoch. But
Nick, can I ask you? Can I just push back a second, or ask you a question?
Yeah.
What if Fierceness does sit off a Dornoch? Let's say Torpedo sits in the pocket, which I personally think is her best chance to win by not going to the lead. Do you apparently think Fierceness is just going to go by Dornoch, like Dornoch's just not very good? I mean, when has Fierceness ever gone by anyone good in his entire career?
Well, I mean, he did. He did sort of put away. I mean, he put away Muth in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. Who knows how good Muth is? But
okay. I mean, obviously he ran well in the Juvenile. That was a speed favorite.
Right.
Whatever. We can go back
and it was a slow pace race. Look, he's not. If you would have told me that 4 months ago, I would have been sitting here defending fierceness in the Travers. I would have probably a pie in my face. But I'm the wrong guy to ask about Dornoch. I don't think Dornoch is nearly as good as people think he is, and I'm probably going to be wrong. What Dornoch is, though, is he's a bit of a junkyard dog, right? You don't want to mess with him. You don't want to sort of go toe-to-toe with him because he's tough, and he did really dig in the Haskell. I also think Mindframe is distance limited, so I think that's part of the reason why he was able to fend him off both times. I think Mindframe is probably more of a Met Mile horse in 2025 than he is a Pegasus horse or a Dubai World Cup horse. So I think Dornoch will not have the same sort of cozy run of it that he has in some of his last few starts. And I do think when push comes to shove that Fierceness is a better horse than him. I'm fascinated, though, by how the opening half mile will go, because I still think that'll have a big impact on it. I think the risk that you run, and I don't disagree with you, that sitting in the pocket is probably the best approach for Torpedo Anna. I just hate the idea of taking a speed horse and willingly letting two horses in front of you, because that's when you get into trouble. When you sort of overly rate, or you wait, or you let people start to dictate to you. I think what you're supposed to do at the very least is break. And if they're going to get in front of you, they're going to have to earn it, right? They're going to have to go quick to get in front of you, because if they get used to clear you, then that's going to take a toll on them late.
Paul, let me ask you a question about Torpedo Anna. If you are a fan of Torpedo Anna, or people are a fan of Torpedo Anna, what is the most realistic best way for this horse to win? You can't say, well, she'll walk the dog on the lead like going 48-4. That shit's not going to happen. So in your mind, Paul, as you envision this race, what is Torpedo Anna's best way realistically to win this race Saturday?
I think no worse than second at the turn. I agree with Nick. And especially, I know it's 1.25 miles, and everyone says, well, the post position doesn't matter at 1.25 miles, except in the Derby, it obviously does. But, I don't think they would have picked the one for her going against the boys to be down there. Now, if you just think that she's got the speed to do whatever the hell she wants, I agree with you guys on the pace of the race. A horse that's 20-1 and very, very unlikely winner is Batten Down. Batten Down is going, folks. Pretty sure Junior
Wanted. Paul, or you just do you have intel from Billy Mott?
Let me say this: Junior wanted. I'm fairly certain that Junior's preference would have been to go in the Jim Dandy and see what happens. Okay. They opted not to. He didn't win. He had a similar thought on a horse named Arthur's Ride a few weeks ago that worked out well. Now, this horse is not to be confused with Arthur's Ride, but you get the argument. And again, I'm not saying under any circumstances that he is either going to win or even be quick enough to go to the lead, but I do think he contributes to the pace being even faster. I think Dornoch drew very well. A lot of, like Tom Amos come on TV right after the draw and said, well, Fierceness won the draw. I disagree with that. I think he is going to get that caught 3 wide trip and going to be 4th or 5th coming out of the turn instead of 1st or 2nd, and not going to make it up. That was my rationale for not using him. But I am a convert to Dornoch. I was against Dornoch in every race you see on the page. Maybe I get wrapped up. I wrote a 1,800-word story on the Haskell for Mid-Atlantic Thoroughbred last week, so maybe I just have Dornoch on the brain. But Nick called it. This guy is a fighter, and I think you underestimate him at your own risk, and I think he could get a pretty good trip from out there.
The last horse I want to talk about, Pete, and I'll let you talk about this one. This is my wise guy, wacky horse of this race. Corporate Power, guys, is fascinating to me. And there's 2 reasons, Pete. And you've got him 3rd as well as Paul. So we sort of agree.
I almost had him in 1st. I was trying to find a reason, and I couldn't pull the trigger.
Pete, I'll let you talk then, because I really think this horse is going to run a big race. I don't know if he's going to win, but there's a lot of things I like about this Sugar Runner. Pete, I'll let you take it away, and then then we'll wrap up the show with Nick, guys.
Here's well, the good I liked. I just think it could potentially set up well for him. I think everything that we're talking about could happen. And the one thing about Dornoch is Dornoch's not going to give up anything, as we've seen. So whether he's good enough to win the race or hold on against Torpedo Anna and Fierceness, he's going to fight down the lane. And what that might do is it might just wear the three of them out. So obviously that's why we picked Sierra Leone, thinking, okay, if they get worn out, Sierra Leone's going to go rolling by. But what if Sierra Leone just leaves himself too much to do, like he's known to do? And then one of these other horses who's talented sits there in Corporate Power. I mean, breeding wise, I feel like the 1.25 miles shouldn't be a question for him. I like how he came home. He doesn't come. He's weird though. He's a little goofy still. He seems a little green to me, and I always seem to like those horses, and then they let me down. So the reason I didn't put him on top is because I was like, he's just going to screw me in the end, and I'm like an idiot. But
he's grindy, Pete, but he keeps coming. I just think the 1.25 miles is going to hit this horse right
That's
between
what I
the
thought.
eyes.
And if he's chasing horses who've sort of just worn themselves out fighting each other, I think he could do that. And then if Sierra Leone's a little too far back, then maybe this one gets it. He could be my pick by the time, or he might just be crap and he'll run terrible and he'll just run sort of a middling 4th or 5th. But I just something I like about him.
Pete and Nick, I thought he was done, but then he keeps coming on, Nick. I like his tenacity. I thought he moved earlier than he wanted to against a real nice Chad who's in this race also. He's my wacko horse, Nick. Maybe I'm completely crazy, but I really think, I'm not going to underestimate Shug at a big price in a race that could fall apart, Nick.
I agree. No, I have no argument with him. His dam, interestingly, was the only horse to beat Monomoy Girl, I think, through her first 9 or 10 starts. Road to victory.
Interesting.
And obviously he's a Curlin, so the distance should be no issue whatsoever. Javier's won this race 7 times, so he definitely knows how to get a horse into position here. So no, he seems like a very interesting long shot type. I don't really think the quote unquote other 4 horses in this race are all that off the wall. Once you get past those 4 that are under 4-1 on the morning line, I think really any of those other 4 are capable of at least getting a piece of it. Unmatched Wisdom is probably the best of them. My concern with Unmatched Wisdom is I don't really think he wants to go 1.25 miles. I think he'll probably a little bit better going shorter. He's a very talented horse.
What do you think he does, Nick? What do you think? Because I was hard trying to figure out his trip, and I was having a really hard time figuring out where they're going to put him.
Yeah, I guess he'll probably let that early skirmish happen between the 1, 7, and 8 at plus batten down and probably just try to wedge in behind them. Maybe get into position just from a little bit off of it and then try and pounce on them going around the turn. What he's going to need is he's going to need things to get hot and heavy up front a little bit so that he can pick up the baton at the quarter pole and then hopefully have enough to hold off Sierra Leone. It's a bit of a tough scenario to envision him winning. Yeah. But he might be one of those horses that afterwards we say, wow, Unmatched Wisdom's one that you really want to keep an eye on for the future because he's so lightly raced still, right? I mean, he's only 3 career starts. Yeah. I can tell you this much. There is no race in the world that Chad Brown wants to win more than the Travers. I mean, it is his Derby, Preakness, Belmont, Breeders' Cup Classic wrapped in one, being an upstate New York kid. So if it's a ding-dong battle down the stretch between Unmatched Wisdom and Sierra Leone, I'm sure he'll just sprint to the winner's circle.
By the way, 10 furlong and up, graded stakes on dirt. Chad Brown 1 for 17 the last 5 years.
I believe that. I mean, definitely not his forte by any means, but well, I guess we're all sort of banking on, or most of us are banking on it happening.
About to be a second one, my friend. Nick, we're sorry that the reason why you were able to stay on longer is because your Astros didn't play real well tonight, but we all benefited and are much better for it, literally better for it on this Saturday. Any final thoughts, Nick, and we'll let you go. Don't go away, everyone. We're going to spend another about 10 minutes talking about our best bets after Nick leaves here, but any final thoughts on an unbelievable day at Saratoga Saturday?
No, greatly looking forward to it, right? We're expecting good weather, which, has been an issue throughout the meet. It feels like an issue for 2 years there. But, expecting good weather. So looking forward to some great racing. I think there's 6 pick 5s on Saturday. It's some just outrageous number. So, if you're a pick 5 player, there's a cornucopia of options. I'm expecting you to play every single one of them, Howard. So,
Paul, I don't know if you have enough time to put the second mortgage on the house, Paul.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, take the rubber band off the bankroll. This is this is the first step towards the Breeders' Cup. So no, I appreciate you having me. I enjoyed it as always, and look forward to doing so again.
How about a big hand to everyone
Nick.
listening, watching for Nick Tammaro. Nick, we really appreciate it, buddy. It's such an honor to have you on. Good luck this weekend, and look for. Are you gonna be at the Breeders' Cup this year or no?
I doubt it, but I'll surface
man.
somewhere where we'll cross paths. Maybe what you need to do is come down to Houston.
I would love to. One of my best childhood friends moved to Sugar Land. I'm assuming you've heard of Sugar Land years and years ago. I've not been down to Houston in a while. Maybe we'll talk. Maybe we'll work that out. Maybe an HHH Racing Podcast trip, guys, to Sam Houston. What do we think?
Love it.
We'll work that out.
We've got a good NHC qualifier on Houston Racing Festival. Yes. So it's also Pegasus Day. It includes the races from Gulfstream. So yeah, make your way down.
Okay, if you ask James Harden, good strip clubs too. If you want to hang, James Harden.
Barkley was the original on that, right?
Yes,
it is. I've been told such a thing.
Actually, to our audience, I should have went with Barkley. We probably, depending on how we're skewing.
Oh man,
Paul, I heard the track announcer there is sort of nah. But anyway, Nick,
we may get it. We may be able to visit the booth.
In terms of morning line making, he's a good track announcer, right?
Nick, thanks. Nick, we'll let you go. Thanks a lot, man.
Thanks,
really
thank you, Nick.
Appreciate it. Good luck, Saturday.
Take care, man.
Bye-bye. All right, Nick Tammaro, guys. I mean, he spent another 25 minutes with us because he loves talking horse racing, and boy, a lot of intel. He's got a lot of interesting thoughts, guys. I'm going to look at Little Knee again. I got to look at some others because when he talks, I listen. And, he's not always right, just like all of us. But I'll tell you what, if you are a fan of In the Money and you listen to him there, or you look at his sort of daily Saratoga picks, he's always coming up with some wacky prices that come in. So, I mean, just one of the sharpest guys in the game. Pete, let's go to your best bets. Nick's best bet, by the way, was Gun Pilot that I just showed. Nick Tammaro's best bet, Gun Pilot, the one in the Forgo. Nick's best bet, he's going to race 10. He's going with Scylla, I believe, correct? Pete. Pete's going with Scylla, and then a pick 3. Go ahead, Pete, real quick. Sorry.
So I'm just going. Yeah, I couldn't come up with a great best bet, so I figured I'm going to use Scylla, try and catch one where we could beat a favorite, and then I'm going to use Scylla with Mulligan and Cagliostro, who a few of us like in here, and then I'm going to go in the Jerkins, and we're going to go mostly domestic product, but I did want to put Prince of Monaco, and I got to leave Bucadano in, but if Bucadano scratches, then we just keep it simple, 5, 6, 8, and 3, 5.
Paul's best bet is also race 10, and he's going with Society. That's what I love about this podcast, and you guys, we all have different opinions, and hopefully one of them's going to be right, and then you're going to play a double race 12 to 13, Paul, with Prince of Monaco into Doronac and Fierceness.
Yeah, well, that could change.
Okay.
I thought you made some very good points about Fierceness.
Well, thank you.
Well, the thing, but having said all of that, on talent, he certainly could be the most talented horse in the race. So, but. We'll see, but that I think Prince of Monaco is going to be the right price, and I want to have a few horses, few horses available to him. And I have, unlike you that are unwilling to see your attorney, I have a good friend who's an attorney, so I have signed the divorce papers.
All right.
You know what? So Paul, I haven't actually played Sierra Leone as my top choice in any of the prior races. Yeah. So
where's your Anna Marie love, by the way, Pete?
Yeah.
Where's your Anna Marie love in the Travers? I'm shocked.
I just shocked. I love Anna Marie, but at some point you actually have to run a good race to and I just don't know. I mean, he could definitely clunk up though. Which we always say, and he could clunk up if everything melts down. But I just feel like he's going to have a hard. I just don't think he closes as well as Sierra Leone. So how is he going to beat him at his game unless Sierra Leone just gets himself into all kinds of trouble?
Especially if you like Corporate Power, who's a closer also. So there's
hard.
2 other closers you prefer more than the horse you like.
And the horse that I really like Anna Marie otherwise. But
guys, I'm going to play a simple double. I think domestic product is going to run a huge race, and book him down or not. I'm going to go a double. I could, of course, single Sierra Leone, but I'm not. I'm going to use Doronac. Doronac, I've become a fan of. I think he's really good. I just don't think he's going to let Fierceness go by that easily, if at all. I don't believe in Fierceness, guys. I never have. I still don't, despite his win last time. So I think either Sierra Leone closes and wins realistically, or Dornoch finds a way to wire the field, or maybe sit off Torpedo and go by. I didn't talk a lot about the Travers myself personally because I want you guys to talk. I want Nick to talk. So let me just end this conversation tonight with this. Everyone knows my love for Sierra Leone. I have said this on the show 1,000 times. I always bet with my head, not with my heart. But you know what, guys? In this year's Travers, I'm betting both. I really think Sierra Leone, it sets up well for him. And I've said all along, guys, as you know, he's going to win a monster race this year, other than, of course, the Bluegrass and whatever. And if he wins at 4-1 and I don't pick him on top, publicly, I'm going to feel like a real idiot. So look, maybe Sierra Leone's not going to win again. That's how I feel. I think 4 or 5 things have to go right for Torpedo Anna to win. I love Torpedo Anna as a horse. I just don't like the spot at all for her. And I think Fierceness is a little bit fake. I mean, so that's pretty much my opinion. And Corporate Power, Pete and Paul would be my reverse tri-key underneath, horse to goof around with. Guys, what a show. It's been an incredible show. I want to thank Nick Tammaro again. I want to thank my good friend and co-host, Pete Visco, my other good friend and co-host, Paul Harron. This has been a special show tonight covering the Travers all day, all grade 1, pick 5 on Saturday. We cannot wish everyone enough good luck with your bets. If you're interested in our Saratoga only Power Picks tip sheet, I'm going to be writing it this Saturday. It's going to be several pages long. Please go to the great website that Pete Visco runs for us, hhhracingpodcast.com. Let me put up the banner just for the site there, Pete. And people can look into our Saratoga only Power Picks and our regular Power Picks. And of course, Noah Maher has been crushing it with his Del Mar Power Picks as well. I'm going to end it like I always do. Crush your bets this Saturday at the Spa. Take care, everyone. Have a great Travers. Bye-bye.
If you have not followed his Triple H horse racing podcast, you're missing out. It's one of the best podcasts in the country.